Good morning, everyone. A very warm welcome to one and all. I'm Nalini Pandalangat from Sherborne Health Centre, also a member of the steering committee at the corner. And on behalf of all the members of the steering committee, as well as all staff at the corner, we are really happy to welcome all of you here. The corner is an inclusive community space. It belongs to everybody, yet is owned by nobody. That's our tagline, and we firmly believe in it. Just yesterday, we had our Pride celebrations here at the corner, very well attended. It was a beautiful event. And just in the month of Ramadan, we had our community looking for space to pray here, communal space, because there was no space available. And then the corner opened its doors, and we received a wonderful, a beautiful letter this week from the community, thanking us for sharing the space. Along the way, we've really come to realize what a powerful tool space can be in inclusive community capacity building, and also bringing services and programs here to where the community lives. So the corner came about as a series of, as a result of a series of 16 community consultations. Right now, we have a steering committee that governs the corner and is 8 residents and 5 service providers are part of the steering committee. The space has been made possible by a robust partnership with Toronto Community Housing, and Doreena's here. So, we have an array of cross-sectoral services. So just to name a few, we have primary care, mental health, employment, settlement, and we also have community-led programs. We have Spanish classes here, we have English classes, we have piano classes. So, and the pride that we take in is that because this is a truly integrated service model, a resident walks into the corner and just with one intake is kind of connected to multiple services as the needs might be. And these services are very often offered by different service organizations. So we're really proud of that fact. We have around 20 organizations working here, providing services. So it is to this amazing space that I'm really happy to welcome Ontario's Honourable Minister of Infrastructure, Minister Bob Chiarelli, and just celebrating Canada's 150 years. I thought it is just a fun fact to share that Minister Chiarelli is also was the first mayor of the amalgamated city of Ottawa, and is also a great Ottawa Senators fan. So, really happy to have the special advisor to the Premier for Community Hubs, Karen Pitre here. Karen, your work and leadership and commitment in moving the Community Hub agenda forward is great, and we really thank you from the bottom of our hearts for it. So thanks for coming here once again. I also want to welcome everybody in the media, our partners, residents, stakeholders, everyone who's here. Welcome once again, and I now invite Minister Chiarelli to say a few words.
Thank you very much, Nalini, and good morning, everyone. Very pleased to be here with Karen Pitre, who is a really very major factor in moving community hubs forward in the province. You know, as mayor of the amalgamated city of Ottawa, at the time of the amalgamation, we had coming together about 17,000 people in community housing, the same format and the same type of structure that you have here, and we see them having a significant amount of leadership as well. Sometimes struggling to get all the activities and all the services necessary to provide to the community. Very, very similar to what you've done here. Yours is a bit larger and a lot more services, but I know firsthand from my experience as Mayor of Ottawa that it really makes a tremendous difference in communities, especially for the young people in the community. It's really mentoring and keeping them active and making them confident in their abilities and so on and so forth. So I want to thank you for that work. It makes a tremendous difference. This is an outstanding example of the community hub serving those here in downtown Toronto. But a community hub is certainly not a new concept. For decades, local community champions, like those of you here, have been coming together to establish hubs in response to the needs of your communities. And community hubs offer many services, often in highly integrated and client-centered way, under one roof. Part of my ministry's job is to engage projects that directly strengthen communities and the economy, very much like community hubs. And we're pleased to be announcing today that we're delivering on one of the tools that is needed to deliver and enable vibrant and sustainable community hubs. And in 2015, some of you may be aware, I'm sure some of you attended, we held the Community Hubs Framework Advisory Group, we communicated with the Framework Advisory Group led by Karen Pitre, and it resulted in a strategic framework action plan of 27 items. We're moving very, very quickly on those items in the action plan. We're making good on that list of recommendations. And one of the pillars of the action plan is a development of an initiative that maximizes the use of public surplus properties for community benefit. And at our recent Community Hub Summit that took place last month here in Toronto, the Premier announced a new initiative to do just that. And we're very excited to be here today to announce that next week we will start accepting applications for the new Surplus Property Transition Initiative. Now that may sound complicated, but it's really a simple plan that will be extremely helpful. Our government will be providing up to $2 million in total to maintain some designated surplus public properties for up to 18 months to give successful champions like yourselves the time to develop your plans for community hubs on the identified properties. And Karen will walk you through the nuts and bolts of that initiative in a few moments. While communities and government are doing great work, we know that many barriers still exist. And that's why we're continuing to roll out new tools and resources. And we certainly appreciate the patience of people who are working in hubs such as this. We know that you're stressed for resources and space and so on and so forth. So we're looking to try to create the resources to enable improvements across the board in important hubs such as this. And as I mentioned last month, we hosted a very successful two-day Community Hub Summit, connecting more than 700 people from across the province who are working in or planning for community hubs. And at the summit, we also launched the Resource Network website, communityhubsontario.ca. The website is connecting Ontarians to share best practices, troubleshoot problems, strengthen partnerships, and coordinate efforts among organizations across the province. For example, as I mentioned, there are similar setups as this, hubs such as this, in Ottawa community housing, and I think there's a lot we can learn from each other, and this is a website that will be helpful. Also helpful in terms of perhaps mentoring on how to access more services to expand what you have here and improve your services. The website also offers an advanced mapping tool that has many layers based on the demographics of each region. This information is invaluable to users who are interested in targeted community planning and service delivery. There are so many examples of innovative and thriving hubs across the province and in our own backyards, and it's really exciting to be part of the movement. This movement represents individuals and organizations working together to improve quality of life in their communities, making a real difference. You imagine every child that comes in here and accesses your services, if they didn't have this here, what the community would be like. So it's absolutely critical that, first of all, we have community leadership, but also we have to respond to that community leadership to make sure that you have the resources to move forward. We're encouraged by the significant progress made to date and excited about what we can achieve together for the future of community hubs in Ontario. In a second, as I mentioned, we'll call on my colleague, and one of your biggest and most relentless advocates, Karen Pitre, the Premier Special Advisor on Community Hubs, to walk you through the details of our new initiative. And it's because of Karen's leadership and commitment, almost single-handedly, shook the provincial government and got us on track. And I think we're on track to do some great things. So it's my pleasure to introduce Karen.
So good morning, everybody, and thank you very much to Minister Chiarelli. Despite the fact that he's an Ottawa Senator fan, we won't hold that against him. For us diehard Leaf fans, we have a lot to aspire to. But I really want to thank you for, throughout your career, the work that you've done. So this is not a new concept, and in terms of building community capacity, and as a mayor, you would know that very well. But I think it's really important to have the Minister of Infrastructure as our partner in this conversation, because a lot of the challenges we face are related to property challenges. And I think it's to your credit and to the Ministry of Infrastructure that we can move some of these more difficult challenges forward. And this is a great place. So I visited here the corner in the fall to get a flavor for some of the things that were happening in the community, and it's so great to see the collaboration. It gives you the strength to do wonderful things. And I think what's also interesting, we talked about the need for that extensive community outreach. And, we looked at and we talked about how it took to actually bring those partners together in the 5 years of consultation to actually get a common vision, and actually before this opened up in 2011. And I think that is a credit to all the hard work, but also bringing people along. And I love the logo, owned by nobody, but owned by everybody. I think that actually talks a lot about the fact that collaboration and trust is something that's difficult to build quickly. And I think that we've heard that everywhere we go. So planning takes time. And as the Minister mentioned, we're here today to talk about an initiative which is surplus property, which for many people it's a complicated conversation, but we want to address that challenge. And really what we're talking about is giving people that have a plan for a property the time that it takes to actually develop that business plan, to build those partnerships, and actually make sure that the property that we're talking about is not sold off while that conversation is taking place. So we want to use this opportunity to actually figure out how to do a better job of managing our properties. So the properties that we're talking about today are Province of Ontario properties, school board properties, and hospital properties. And for many of you who have been involved in the conversation for a while know that this is often a very deep-rooted community issue that people want to have time to think about it. So what we've done is we put together a program where you can actually apply. The eligible recipients, there's a program guideline, but it includes not-for-profits, registered charities, municipalities who have a plan for a surplus property. We want people to come together to form partnerships, to work together with their local community organizations to build and strengthen those relationships. So how does one apply? Next week, as the Minister mentioned, there will be an application form and a program guidelines that will be posted on the Ministry website, and we're looking at a two-step process. Initially, we will have applicants that will pass through sort of an eligibility checklist to make sure that they actually meet this certain criteria. Then we will work with those applicants, because we know in some cases there's not the capacity to do all of the work that's required to fill it in, so that they can actually put forward their plan for what they want to do on this property. And we'll have an evaluation committee that is made up of different ministries across the government. And I think that's the other part of this interesting conversation, is the actual combination of people that are having this conversation. It's not just the Ministry of Infrastructure, but we have Community and Social Services, we have the Ministry of Health, we have Education, who are partners in this conversation. We'll start the intake immediately, but people will have until October, the middle of October, October 16th, to put in their application, and we'll notify people by the end of November as to which ones we will proceed with. Once these applications are successful, they'll have up to 18 months, which I know based on some of the feedback is not a lot of time, but it's more time than we have now. And the Community Hubs team will work with these applications to actually make sure they have the tools they need to put forward that community plan. These projects will actually give us some key learnings to inform future direction and how to successfully transition some of these surplus properties to meet community needs and to develop those broader provincial interests, which include community hubs. So I would like to say there's a number of people from the Community Hubs team today that have done a lot of work to get this to where we are today. As Minister Chiarelli said, it's not easy to move the machinery of government always, but we have been pushing hard, and we want to make sure that we work with community to deliver the kinds of things that they see as important in their local community. So we're really excited about this initiative. It's opening up the door, it's opening up the conversation. It's really a great step in the right direction. Clearly, we need to continue to work together. The people on the ground are the ones that actually have all the expertise, and we see the work of local champions. I look around the room and I've met many of you, and I think there's some great people doing great work. So we need a better job of collaborating between government and communities, because we all believe this is really important. We want to live in complete communities, and this is a step that's going to take us to that next step, which is having more of these in more communities and making it easier for people on the ground. So I thank you for hosting us today. It's a great example. I thank the Minister for his leadership on this file, and we look forward to continuing to move the agenda. And as we say, it's sometimes hard and takes time, but we are moving in the right direction, and this is the next step. So thank you very much. And we have, if there are any questions, we can answer them as well. Thank you.
So, thank you very much, Minister Chiarelli, and especially. Sure. Yes. You have Karen right next to you.
I was at a planning meeting with a number of mayors a number of months ago, and they were talking about forward-looking, planning 50 years ahead. And one of them was speculating, what will people in Toronto be saying 50 years from now? Okay. And one of the mayors popped up and said, they'll be saying it's only been 100 years since Elite's won the
So apart from that comment, so we thank you. It's a great announcement, and I think all of us working on hubs are really heartened by this. And thank you all for coming and, like Karen said, open the floor for questions.
Thank you. Congratulations, everyone. Keep doing it. It's making a difference. Thank you.
Thank you.